Hello and welcome to a Marson Energy Evolve Carbon GT battery upgrade. These battery upgrades can be used with the 15 amp hour or the 17.5 amp hour battery. First thing we need to do is remove the top deck cover. Once we remove the cover, we now need to disconnect all the cables connecting the battery to the ESC. Once all the cables are disconnected, we now need to prise the battery out of the deck. The battery is held in with double-sided tape and can be quite difficult to pull out, so carefully prise up on both ends. Once the battery is removed, remove any excess double-sided tape and clean out the deck enclosure of any particles of sand. Now we need to strip down the end of the battery to remove the battery management system, or BMS. The BMS will be used again and is attached to the new Marson battery. Cut all the small tape that's holding the BMS to the battery itself. Next, using side cutters, cut the two black wires going to the BMS. First the battery wire, then the power plug wire. Leave as much of the black wire on the BMS as possible. Next, remove the 11-pin plug. The 11-pin plug has been secured with silicone, so it may be required to remove the silicone before being able to remove the plug. Finally, we cut the small red charge lead. On older style BMSs, there will be two red wires. Then we can discard the battery. Again, remove any of the tape holding on the barley paper which insulates the BMS. This particular model is one of the oldest style BMSs and doesn't have a heatsink on it. Next, we're preparing the deck to install the spacer. The spacer is required to give extra room in the deck area for the larger battery and also to assist in cooling. Next, remove the 4 screws holding the top plate of the ESC. Lift off the ESC and unplug the sensor wires and the switch wire. Place in a secure place. Disconnect your motors. Next, flip the deck over. And remove the 4 screws holding the heat plate into the deck. The heat plate is fixed in with double-sided tape as a sealant, so we'll require a certain amount of pressure to be able to push it out from the deck. One method is to use screwdriver or long nose pliers to push on the corners of the PCB, pressing down on the brass riser. Now we can install the spacer to the bottom half of the ESC, which includes the heatsink. This particular riser is made from polyurethane and is slightly flexible. Install onto the deck, making sure none of the wires are pinched as you press down into the deck. Now, using the longer screws supplied, fix the heatsink back to the carbon deck. Here I'm using Loctite to secure the screws into the deck to prevent any vibration causing the screws to come loose. Now we can reinstall the top plate of the ESC. Insert the sensor plugs in the switch plug first, as with the lower part of the ESC being lowered further into the deck, it can be quite tricky to put the plugs in once the top plate's on. Carefully align the top plate, making sure none of the wires are pinched in the corners. Please note here that as I'm securing in the screws, you can see that the power plug, instead of coming out of the side of the ESC, I've moved it so it's coming to the front of the deck. This is because the clearance between the side of the ESC and the deck itself has been reduced by dropping the ESC using the spacer. Next, I'm preparing to mount the BMS onto the ESC. The battery comes supplied with additional barley paper and double-sided tape to be able to fix it to the top of the ESC. The barley paper provides both electrical and heat insulation between the ESC and the BMS. Here I'm just securing the original barley paper that's supplied with this particular BMS and securing it to the BMS correctly. Next, put the BMS plugs back in to the ESC. Now I'm mounting the barley paper with the double-sided tape on it. Ensure the deck is thoroughly cleaned of any particles of sand. Here I'm mounting Kapton tape just as additional insulation between the battery and the deck. Here I'm just checking the length of the BMS battery lead and cutting it short so that there's no excess cables within the enclosure. As everything is a tight space, you want to keep things to a minimum. Strip back the wire and insert into the high current clamp connector. Using insulation tape, just secure the clamps on the clamp connector to prevent them from accidentally coming open. Here I'm using the original cable clip to secure the battery lead, keeping things nice and neat. Repeat for the second black lead. This is the power lead that connects to the Dean style T-plug. The small black lead that comes out the BMS is the thermocouple for the battery. The thermocouple can be inserted into the battery by lifting up the blue plastic shrink wrap and pushing it in next to the BMS wires. Insert the BMS 11-pin plug. Here I'm using some cable ties just to keep all the cabling and wires neatly fastened into the deck. Now we can connect up the power lead. Once connected, we can turn the board on and check for operation. Turn on the remote and check the operation of the board. The battery will arrive at only 30% charged, so we'll need charging once the installation is complete. Once everything is checked correct, now we need to tidy up the wiring and connect the charge lead. Here I'm using barley paper just to secure the wires down, keep it nice and flat for when the top deck is placed back on the board. Here I'm using an auto style crimp connector. Your battery will be supplied with another Wago type connector. Again, with the older style BMSs, there is an extra red wire that's connected next to the BMS 11-pin plug. This can be joined with the two charge wires. So you'll have 3 wires all connected together. This completes the installation of the battery. Any questions, please contact me by email or telephone. This completes the installation of the Marson battery. Thank you for watching.